The story begins. I live alone. Although women living solo have safety concerns, I don't really feel afraid. I always find ways to keep boredom at bay. Since I started living away from home when I was studying, I've become quite experienced in choosing apartments after entering the workforce. If there's something wrong with a place or strange occurrences, I can usually tell right away during the viewing. That way I can avoid some unnecessary troubles. 4 years into my career, the company I worked for offered me a promotion. The catch was that I had to be dispatched abroad for a year. As a girl who had never crossed the Jua Shui River in Taipei, this was a huge decision for me. It took me a while to decide, but the opportunity was fleeting. After discussing with my family, I decided to accept the job. I then began the process of finding a place to stay in my new location. Finding an apartment wasn't hard, but the real challenge was locating a place free of violence, ghosts, bad neighbors, or perverts. It was exhausting. My workplace was in a lively area, yes, related to retail. So if I wanted a good apartment downtown, I had to do my homework. The company didn't provide accommodations, only stipends. There was a big gap between what I wanted and what I could get. I wanted a distant location, which meant inconvenient transportation. Plus, my shifts usually ended past 11 at night. Considering safety and convenience, I found a place about a 10-minute walk from the company. The first time I stepped into this apartment, I felt suffocated. Not because of the weather or humidity, but as if time had frozen here, creating a stifling atmosphere. I'm generally not sensitive, and I've never encountered anything supernatural or strange. During school, I partied and stayed out late with friends, and I'd never had sleep paralysis or ghostly encounters. So I just thought the feeling was due to poor ventilation. The previous tenant who showed me the apartment was a senior colleague of mine who was transferring back to Taipei. I didn't mention my uneasy feeling at the time. She didn't seem particularly strange, but I did notice her exhaling a breath of relief when signing the lease. That weird sense just got brushed aside. The first month of living there was peaceful. I gradually made the space comfortable, hanging a small, elegant ceiling fan and soft lights that made the room cozy. I settled into my work routine and became more proficient, but fatigue from busy days increased. Then came the anniversary sale. Anyone in retail knows how important it is. It was my first big challenge after transferring here. I arranged my team and prepared for the crowd. Naturally, I returned home exhausted, often appearing like a dead fish. After removing makeup and taking a shower, I'd just collapse into sleep. But during this period, I started having trouble sleeping. I couldn't sleep deeply, as if I was asleep but not really asleep. I kept dreaming but couldn't remember what about. One day, after a particularly tiring shift, I was zoning out in my room while holding some late-night snacks. I stood under the ceiling fan, lost in thought. The fan kept rotating, but I didn't remember turning it on. Suddenly, I felt a strange sensation brushing against my left cheek, light like feathers or something similar, gently passing by. It was rhythmic, matching the fan's movement. I looked up at the fan. There was nothing unusual. Just the faint sound of the fan whirring, a soft thud-thud as it spun. I suddenly snapped to awareness. Why was I just standing there? What was I doing? I looked at my cold, untouched snack, unable to piece together what had just happened. From that day on, I kept returning home and standing under the fan, zoning out at unpredictable times, sometimes minutes, sometimes half an hour, without any memory of the process. Nothing else changed, except my left cheek seemed darker than my right, more than just a tan. It wasn't a tan line, but a clear, straight black line dividing my face, darkened by 2 shades. This continued until one day when the head office sent someone to check on me. It was my former colleague Lisa, who called ahead to arrange dinner. She said she didn't want to stay in a hotel during her business trip and wanted to spend a night with me. I welcomed her. No one had visited this apartment before. That evening, after work, we bought a bunch of food and drinks to relax. I didn't tell anyone what I'd experienced, thinking it wasn't serious. As I unlocked the door and joked with Lisa, she suddenly gasped sharply behind me and froze. I entered the room as usual, walking straight to the fan. Then, I zoned out again. I didn't consciously do anything, just stood there in a daze under the spinning fan, as if it were a normal thing. I lost track of how long I stayed like that until I was suddenly yanked by a powerful force. My arm was pulled, and before I knew it, I was being dragged out the front door. The entire ordeal took only seconds. When I tried to struggle, Lisa suddenly slapped me hard across the face. The slap echoed sharply, pain erupting instantly. My mouth moved on its own, speaking words I didn't recognize. "Don't interfere," I heard myself say, though it wasn't my voice. "Leave my colleague alone. She's innocent." The cold, indifferent voice continued. "It's none of your business." I felt like I was watching a strange stage play from afar, distant and surreal. Lisa was shouting at me, but I seemed to respond in kind, the scene resembling a fight over a man, like a drama of betrayal. Annoyed, Lisa reached into her bag and pulled out a string of prayer beads, flicking them toward my face. Her movements were swift and precise, like cracking a whip, the beads striking my face. Surprisingly, it didn't hurt. Yet, I was wailing in agony, tears streaming, as she kept flicking them at me. Gradually, my screams faded into silence, and I returned to my own voice. What's happening?" I collapsed on the ground, trembling, utterly confused. Besides being overwhelmed, I felt a burning pain on my left cheek and a dizzying sensation. I struggled to stay conscious. Lisa only smiled bitterly and said, "Looks like you're going to stay in a hotel tonight." At the hotel, Lisa seemed exhausted. She took a shower and sat motionless on the bed, handing me a bundle of herbs or maybe incense, instructing me to soak in hot water with it. I just wanted to find out what was going on. But she insisted I soak first until she was satisfied. Though I had a hunch, I still felt confused. Nothing felt truly supernatural. After finishing, we ate the cold snacks and drank the warm beer left over. Lisa suddenly said, "My family runs a temple, for asking questions and stuff." I blinked, unsure how to react. "When you opened the door, a terrible smell hit me," she added, wrinkling her nose. And then I saw her. "Who?" I asked with a nervous glance. "A woman hanging upside down from your fan blades," Lisa said casually. "When you entered, you just stood there under the fan, not doing anything, while that ghostly woman kept licking your left cheek with her long tongue as the fan spun." I was stunned. My mind went blank. A woman ghost hanging upside down, licking my face every day. When I finally understood how terrifying that image was, I screamed as if someone might call the police. Actually, some tenants had already called the front desk. After calming down, I tremblingly asked why this happened. Lisa said she didn't know, only that she did some emergency measures, but the problem wasn't fully resolved. She used a protective Buddhist rosary to temporarily drive her away. Lisa suggested that her family's deity might handle it. I was at my wit's end. Although I hadn't seen anything, what I experienced was real. Without hesitation, I agreed. Lisa called home to explain, saying she'd come back the next morning. She also handed me a laminated talisman to place under my pillow, telling me to sleep with it. I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep after such a strange event. But surprisingly, I fell asleep quickly. As soon as my head touched the pillow, a deep sleep washed over me. I even heard Lisa's voice saying, "The door might not hold it back." That night, I slept soundly, no dreams at all. Wake up feeling refreshed. I looked in the mirror, expecting to see exhaustion, but I felt completely energized. Lisa looked haggard, as if she'd fought a battle all night. She waved her hand and said, "It's fine, just drink some chicken soup. Take a day off and handle this." When I arrived at Lisa's house, her father seemed to have been waiting for us. Calm, composed, with a hand casually on his hip. As I got out of the car, I suddenly felt reluctant to approach. My steps slowed involuntarily. Lisa sensed something and grabbed my arm, saying fiercely, "Don't give in to her. Keep walking." She held my arm tightly, and I let her lead me forward, though a growing resistance welled inside me. When we reached her father, I wanted to turn and run, but I couldn't move. Bersker sank. "You're still not obedient?" he said, pressing my shoulder. I suddenly felt my legs turn weak, unable to stand. Lisa quickly placed a chair behind me, and I sank down helplessly. Her father's face was serene, yet radiated a quiet authority. He began performing some incomprehensible ritual, details I couldn't describe as I didn't understand them. During that time, I felt a burning sensation on my left cheek and a dizzy spell, struggling to stay conscious. After a while, the burning subsided, and he handed me a talisman and a bundle of herbs, like what Lisa gave me for bathing, to handle the aftermath. Later, I followed his instructions to cleanse the room. I then called my senior, Lisa's predecessor, demanding to know what all this was about. To my shock, she had resigned shortly after returning to Taipei, citing mysterious illness. She had developed a terrible sore on her face that refused to heal and kept rotting. I never saw her again after that. I continued living in that apartment until my assignment ended, and no further supernatural events occurred, except that sometimes my left cheek itches. The story ends. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Macabre for more twisted tales that keep the darkness alive.